that I passed around acts for two reasons. It shows participation in the planning process. It also acts as in-kind for the county. So the county has got a bill, a portion they are required to submit. Your time tonight counts, making sure those tax dollars are not going to the planning process, but act as an in-kind process.
That makes sense.
Does anyone have any questions?
That's an action item.
Yes.
I will put one more thing in here. In the process right now, I'm talking with Sam to get actions developed for the plan. FEMA and SEMA have gotten very picky about what they will approve and will not approve when it comes to funding grants. If it is not in the plan, they will not approve it. So if there's any idea or even a remote thought of improving the school in some way that would help with natural hazard mitigation, so a safe room, improving the PA systems to alert, or putting new radios in, or upgrading or retrofitting the building to be natural hazard resistant, such as fires and such, please let him know so we can get those actions written into the plan. Although they might not occur, we'd rather have it in there and be safe.
Who do we let know?
Sam Gibson, the resource
That's
officer.
all right.
He's our coordinator.
Now, if here in the next couple of weeks, if you could shoot him an email, talk to him, he'll send me an email, we can get those written. I'd rather not use it for the grant process than to have to apply for the grants and then deny you for it. Unfortunately, recently, that has happened in Saline County. Marshall, in the last plan, did not have the flooding that occurred on the north end of it. They applied for grants and they were denied because it was not listed in the plan. So even if it's a pipe dream and you don't think it's fundable or feasible, please give him an idea for it so we can get it in there.
Time frame on getting that to you? Like what's
Within the next 2 or 3 weeks. The first draft is due to SEMA at the end of December. I'm trying to get it before there because the end of December, as everyone knows, government gets basically shut down. I'm not going to be able to get a turnaround of any kind of feedback or work through them.
And you and Sam know about your, okay.
Yeah, we've been putting a few things down, but if you have some ideas, you can email, if you email Sam, tag me on it.
You can also email me or call me directly.
Yeah.
My email is chris@trailsrpc.org. Phone number 660-463-7934. Call me directly if you question. If you think it might be a situation that would fit, they only allow certain things, but if it, even just a question of it, maybe we can reword it or work it to something that would eventually and hopefully not have to be used, but still protect the school in the long run.
So these need to be pretty specific then, as you're looking through these. I'm assuming that's why the size of the document comes into play there?
It's a tricky writing process. You want it specific to the jurisdiction,
Evergreen.
specific to the project, but open enough that they can't call you on a situation where they said, well, you didn't put it in there, we're not going to do it.
This is why
So
grant
it's
writing is the worst.
It's what I do for a living. I write strategically. I'm a planner, so I'd be happy to help get this written in a way that it's open enough but closed enough that it becomes a fundable project.
And I take it we're looping in building level admin, becoming aware of needs and opportunities there and such too, right? Of course.
Yeah.
Good.
My first thought was safe rooms. That might be something we might go after, especially Beaker.
Well, we had a long list on the Safety and Security Task Force of like cool ideas and things like that. And so it's high time to get that brought back together, wrapped up and finished up. And maybe I should make sure that you've got that list.
Yeah, make sure
to-
you get Sam and I both a copy. We
Absolutely.
met,
The longest list, and it was, you know, it certainly was the end all be all, but in case there's something that hasn't popped up on your radar that might be worthwhile.
definitely
Okay.
drop that list to us.
I was going to say, we'll send out the contact information for him in an email. It's listed on his correspondence here, so that we can make sure everybody can get in touch with him if need be.
And if you go to my the website, my cell phone is on there too. It is a Houston area code. People get thrown off by that if I end up calling, that they think it's spam every single time. So I'm great at leaving voicemails now. But if you see an odd number and it doesn't look like it's right and you're trying to reach me, there's a good chance it actually is.
Your number is 660-463-7964.
7934.
I'm all messed up, 7934.
What's new?
I'll be calling them.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I do ask that the resolution be passed so we can get that filed away, and that is one of the last few steps to make sure that the school district is included in this plan.
Move to approve, or move to adopt, excuse me.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? All right, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
I look forward to browsing that later on. Moving on to the adoption of the regular agenda as printed and advertised.
No changes?
Was that a move?
I'll move we.
Well, then you're seconding because Matt first did.
Hi, Matt.
All those in favor of adoption of the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Moving down to the reports, the Assistant Superintendent report by Dr. Lorenz.
I just want to mention right off the bat that, and Troy's probably going to punch me in the arm for this, but Troy recently completed his certification as a certified facilities manager down at the PD that he goes to annually at the lake. So congratulations to Troy. It takes, generally when I send my directors down there and they have opportunities to pick up coursework that moves them towards a certification as a facilities manager, and Troy just recently completed his, so congratulations on that. Just some highlights on some of the things that are going on. The track project is nearly complete. I've got just a few more touch-up items to be completed before we stamp finished on that. I'll be proposing a RFP on a scroll compressor a little bit later at Beaker. The on-demand water heaters at Beaker, we recently had them all flushed out. And then IFS is about to fire up the boilers at Beaker. We've also contracted IFS to service our campus with HVAC, campus-wide HVAC controls, so we can bring all of the buildings that we can possibly get under one control to be able to manage it. It's just making it more easily from a management standpoint. We have also added an on-demand water heater at the Career Center. The old one went out, so we put a new one in. We also added a water softener to that on the advice of professionals that typically whenever you put on-demand in, they like to put a water softener with it just to help preserve the life of those systems. I've recently been in communication with the company that's moving the trailers. I'm expecting that to begin any week now, hopefully any day, but at least any week. They seem like we're getting closer to that coming to fruition. I've got, I'm working on bid for 6 sets of double doors over at Beaker. I was hoping to have it this month, but I don't have that information yet, so I can get it out for bid. So I'm hopefully in November we'll be approving that. Building trades class is nearly completed the roof out at the new nursing building out by Fitzgibbon. They're going to be moving to the side walls. They've been working on the interior walls. Also had contractors for plumbing and electrical that are working. That work is in progress. We are just about ready for demolition. We're working on the abatement and the plan with DNR to move forward on the funeral home. So I still hope that we get to demolition here yet this year. We'll see. It's a long, slow process with abatement and paperwork, and so we're moving forward on that. The walk-in coolers and freezers for the high school and Spainhauer. The high school freezer actually arrived yesterday. It's stored in distribution. It's going to take several days, so we have helped since we were at the mercy because the supply chain breaks. So many things are being held up. I pushed them off until Christmas break to install that, so I didn't have to bring a kitchen down and out of commission for probably close to a week. We'll see by the time we get the old one out and the new one in. We are expecting the Spainhauer walk-in cooler to arrive this coming Monday. The Heinzler brothers have been working on a platform because we're on a slope grade out here. We should have that platform coded and back to us from Glasgow here any time now, and they'll probably begin installing that next week. So we we jumped the order of that. Instead of high school first, we're coming out here. So let's see, the fiber, they're finishing up the installation as we speak. They were over there. I was over there just a few minutes ago at the high school. We hope to have that fiber project completely wrapped up by the first week of November. So they're finishing the last bits of fiber pushed in, and then there'll be some connections and punch downs going on, and hopefully before we get to Thanksgiving break, we'll be experiencing some, those two campuses will be experiencing some fiber speed. So the sign at Central Office also got delayed. I thought it was going to be here starting last week. We had an issue. Still hoping to have it here this week. So there was a breakdown in some supplies on that, but hopefully that's corrected, and I'm hoping to see that start this week sometime. The HVAC at Eastwood is still moving forward. All the ductwork is complete, and the building penetrations are complete. They are coming in on this Friday. We're off after parent-teacher conferences on Thursday. I'm hoping they're going to work Friday through the weekend, and I really hope that we get close to completion on that building because the temperature's coming. I'm working on alternative plans for portable heat if that doesn't happen. So far those old buildings have retained that heat pretty good, but when we start seeing highs of 50s multiple days in a row, that'll start moving away pretty fast. So we are moving away from School Dude, the maintenance tracking ticketing system that we use, and we're moving to FMX. It's a few $100s more annually, but from everything we've seen and have experienced, it's a much more user-friendly ticketing system, so we're excited about that. I already talked to you about the heat at Eastwood. Lost the heater out at the trailer at the high school. That's neither here nor there. We're working on a solution for that. So, and technology department, they're working on. They had to hire some extra people. They're really swamped to try to. We got 500 Chromebooks in. We're working on getting them software installed on them so they can be ready for use. Recently also picked up 200 hotspots from Khajiit. So those are available now for use. And we're working with MMU on our internet connections with all this fiber being pushed into these two locations. We have to do some work with them to make all the final connections and get everything back up to speed. So there's probably more, but that's enough.
I spent some time out there watching the boys working on the new nursing building out there. I think they were trying to figure out who I was because I saw them point and look that's there and stuff. But they had their harnesses on. They were working. It was just thrilled to watch what they were doing and learning up there.
It's really been hopping out there, inside and outside. He's got a crew. Well, there's a couple contractors working there, but he's got a crew working on the inside and crew working on the outside. So
Yeah.
it's nice to see them get back to a real project.
Yeah, and that's the stuff
the
I
first
really
one.
want to see our kids
Yeah.
doing that.
I was going to say, and making sure everybody understands, Harry's talking about students that are actually working on
Yeah.
part of this project out
Yeah.
there in the renovation of the school
Yep.
project.
Yeah, they all had their harnesses on. They
Yeah.
put their masks on when they went inside, and took them off when they came outside. I think they tried to figure out who I was over there, but I didn't, just kind of spied on them. I did it twice, so.
Yeah, I really appreciate the job Chris is doing with those young men and women, so.
Any more
That's all
questions
I have,
for
Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Lorenz on his report?
Yeah, so I think I missed something about the doors at Beaker. What's going on with the doors at Beaker?
No.
So, I don't have it out there, he's working on prices for me, but we're looking to replace the exterior doors. Most of the exterior doors at Beaker are worn out, and we have done about everything we can do with the hardware, so we are getting bids from Dugan Glass, because before, and I'll put it out for bid again, but Dugan was the only one that bid on it the last time, but we have several doors that you really have to kick to get shut, and it's a little bit of a struggle, and so we're running that through with some ESSER money.
Does 6 sets do all the doors at that building?
Won't
The
do-
gym set?
It
or
won't
is
do
that-
all. So in the front of the building, there are 2 sets of doubles over by the gymnasium.
Right.
One at the main front door. Dr. Mayer and I talked, we weren't going to necessarily have to do the one on the far left if you're looking at it, but it's
Right.
going to look odd if we don't keep all the front of the doors looking the same. And then, so that's 4, and then we're putting one on the,
On each side coming out the back?
in the back, yes.
Okay.
Well, we just have problems at multiple doors.
Okay.
We'll just leave it at that.
And I assume we'll go with access controls and all that?
Oh,
all
yes,
those
they're
doors coming in?
working with technology to make sure we get electronic, so they'll all have electronic power bars on them. 2 of them will have, we had a camera for out here left over, one of the nice one like out here on the front door. That's what they will have at their front door at Beaker for check-in. There will be I believe we're putting they will all have fob key touchless to get into, and then we'll probably put at least 1 or 2 smaller version cameras at a couple of the other doors so we could see and buzz.
Awesome.
Yeah, it'll be fully access controlled when we're done.
This has been an ongoing issue, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, it's been a struggle since I've been here. We've worked on several of those doors many, many times.
that's part of my confusion. I thought I had lost my mind. I was like, I thought we'd been working on.
We've been working on it, but we haven't, but now we're gonna fix them.
I guess since we asked questions, I kind of wrote mine down, but on the school dude switch, is that something that's on cycle, or is it something we had to bid out, or is that something we could just change?
We checked around for prices. It was about, I think our annual cost on that's $3,800 or $3,900 for a school dude. So we checked prices, we checked competitors. I think what's actually happening, because the school dude hasn't been very responsive to us lately, and as we've checked into it more, and the company that we spoke to a number of bigger school districts about what they used, spoke to the director of maintenance at Joplin, and him and his assistant couldn't, and she used School Dude before, and they kind of alluded that School Dude was, I don't want to say going out of business, but their model was changing, and they had switched to FMX a number of years ago, and she said it was the best move they've ever made, and she had used School Dude for a number of years. So we checked a couple of people like that. We checked prices from a couple of other programs, and this one, it was about, I think it was between $250 and $300 more annually to go to this FMX, but some of the features that will onboard will do everything from inventory control to tracking. We'll do preventative maintenance tracking. There'll be a lot of different things that some of those things were in School Dude. It was just difficult to operate, and this one already seems half as easy, twice as easy to operate, so.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ware.
Yep.
Anything else?
Good job.
Dr. Mayor?
Well, to begin with this evening, I would like to really compliment the city and everyone who is involved in the demolition of all of these buildings here. It's amazing what they've done, and it's really exciting to me to see the potential there. It's going to be a beautiful campus. I just really am grateful to the city for all of the work and the planning and all of the energy they've put into that. So thank you to them. This evening I am presenting the budget, the formal budget packet, and I do have a flyer here with summary of some of the highlights. There is a mistake on this, and I'm not going to tell you which building I left off, but I left off a building and then forgot to change the 7 to 8. So I will do that.
You were right, eh?
I don't have many of I didn't copy many of them, so I'll make that change. But if you would like one, there's some up here for the taking. The regular budget, which is about 80 pages long, the hard copy, will be available in the central office. The budget itself will be available also on the web. So if you don't want to pack something like that around, it is on the web also. Hello.
Yes.
This evening, I wanted to begin my visit with you and talk about our return to school and our safe return to school efforts. If you can, and I bet the board can't see this, can you?
Not well, no.
I can. 'Cause they put my all the way out on the end here.
That didn't even occur
We can
to
get a
me, sorry.
15% tilt there? Great.
I got a message that says the live stream was out. I don't know.
That's a technical issue. I hit the record button so we can in theory, upload it later.
Hey.
Okay. When we get this drop-down screen, it will be so much easier.
It's coming.
I know.
Surely we can make some advancements on that area. Have you got the camera on it?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. T.
As you can see, we've been keeping the numbers for our COVID positives and quarantines for, almost since school started. We have a very exciting trend going right here, and you will see here is where we implemented the mask mandate. I don't know whether the mask mandate in itself is the reason for the significant drop. I would say it probably hasn't hurt anything, but there is a significant drop. Up to Friday, we only had 6 positives and 15 quarantines, which is it's extremely heartening for all of us. So when we look at the Safe Return to School plan, we did announce on October 8th that we were going to a mask mandate of all of the buildings beginning on the 11th. This was for vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals. The evaluation of the district was planned for every 30 days. So to go by the plan in the published Safe Return to School, that would mean that Friday, November the 5th, is the day that we would evaluate again our status and the community status and implement on November 8th a change or keep the mandate, whatever we all decide. However, if the board decides that we would like to end the mask mandate, go for a 2-week trial to see how that would go since our numbers are down, we could do that by administrative procedure without a vote of the board. I am, although I would do the administrative action necessary, I wait for the suggestion and for the direction from the board. So I think that's something that we'll need to consider later on the agenda. We have to vote for the change, to make changes to the plan. So we can do that. I don't know what to recommend. I think that I am very heartened to see those numbers and that steep decrease of cases in our school district. So we can put our heads together and decide what's best for our kids. DESE did adopt, or they did tell schools that there was an option for students to remain in school or to remain in their activities that they wanted to stay in, their sports and their other academic, musical, etc. activities. This was called the test to stay option. If a child were to test once a week or once every 2 weeks, whatever the local board decided, that the option could be that child, even though he or she was a close contact, would not have to quarantine at home. I called the Saline County Health Department when I heard about this from DESE. This was not endorsed by the CDC. Since it was not endorsed by the CDC, it cannot be endorsed by the health department. Tara and I visited, and she said we can't endorse it here at our level either. So right now, our district, along with the other districts in our conference, are not recognizing the test to stay option. We also don't recognize at-home test results for school attendance either, and that is consistent across the conference. We had a suggestion, a recommendation from the state auditor's office to hire an additional assistant in the central office, one who would work to take care of human resources and provide another eye and checks and balances for our, the procedures we have in the central office. I did send out the characteristics and the expectations for this job. This was in the posting that was in the newspaper and on our website. A little bit later, the board will talk about whether or not to go ahead and implement that recommendation. I will, of course, entertain any questions now or later. I do believe that we told the state auditor that we would hire this person. And as you know, that is a recommendation from the auditor, but we did, in our response, say that we would hire this extra person. We are going to also, we have a recommendation from the state auditor that we put out bids for auditing and legal services. I did send those to you. The one for legal is very long, has lots of legalese in it, but I think it's necessary to make sure that we as a district are receiving the services that we want, and to make sure that they, as the law firm, understand what it is that we need. So our deadlines that I had set was that the submission would be December 3rd is the deadline. We will not accept late submissions. We have to draw the line somewhere. The award for the audit and legal could be considered during the January meeting. I have written that we may award it that night, but we don't have to award it that night. So it will be an action item on the January agenda. So that will give us time, and law firms and auditing firms, to make appointments and visit with the district and figure out what all is needed. So when we start on those situations, then, whenever we decide to make that move, the audit is usually, Linda, in later June, early July?
End of July.
End of July. And our legal services, then, we would have to discuss, as if we are awarding the legal service contract to another law firm besides the one we use now, how we would make that transition. So there are some issues that we'll talk about in closed session, but that is the deadline and the time frame that I had for those bids. The federal funding that we are receiving, I just wanted to go over and make sure everyone knew the amounts of the grants, what the grants are going to be used for. The connectivity grant, we have had, these on this page have all been approved by DESE. The connectivity grant brought our Chromebooks, the student access to a great education and education resources for all students, is going to help to hire and fund our career counselor in the high school. The transportation supplement will reimburse the delivery of meals for last summer, and if that should happen to come up again, that's what that money would be used for. Then we also had our ESSER money, which was 2 grants, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. ESSER 2 was $2.138 million. That was approved last year. And here are the things that included, not everything, but it's included those. The hiring of those 2 positions, the interpreter and translator positions, the HVAC systems at Eastwood and Beaker. Those were partial payments. We paid half of them, then we'll pay half of them later. And the purchase and demolition of the funeral home. The ESSER 3 money, we have not been approved that money yet. No school has been approved that money. They had told us before that would happen in October. I remember Dr. T and I talking, that'll never happen, and it's not going to happen. So we got it from DESE the other day that's not going to happen this month. But we are waiting for approval of that. I don't see any reason why it won't be approved. That is $4.746 million. If approved, that funding will pay for our after-school programs, our 5 new buses, our HVAC systems, the second payments for Eastwood and Beaker. The grants also are over 3 years. So the ESSER 2 is through 2023 and the ESSER 3 is through 2024. Gary?
You say 2 hiring positions, a district interpreter
We
and
hi-
translator, are they 2 separate positions?
They are. Well, they both translate and they both interpret.
So we're
But they're
hiring 2 people?
Mhm. Yeah, 2 people.
And then we're going, okay, I've already talked to you about that, but that's all
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
So while we're asking questions, I wasn't going to stop you while you're rolling so well, but
Yeah.
before you talked about the purchase of the Chromebooks, and I believe the funding that we received was like 100 or 108,000 on the last slide. We actually spent about 175,000, I believe, on Chromebooks just recently. So are we as a district making up that gap? I mean, I know that we need the technology, need to have it for all of our students, but is that going to be something that's a non-reimbursable expense for us? So is that kind of other 70,000 roughly lays out there, or 60,000?
So that's coming through E-rate monies. And
Okay, I was curious if that came
we had to ask for 1,000 through the emergency funds in E-rate. And in those emergency funds for E-rate, they were picking up $400 per item, which we were less than that for each Chromebook. We did not, I held on ordering all 1,000 of those Chromebooks because I wanted, it was another one of those where we didn't have it in hand yet, and I didn't want to get, I didn't want to be put out on the limb that far for the full 1,000, so we got 500 coming. There's been no indication that E-rate isn't, the emergency funding isn't going to come through. It just hasn't been completely approved yet. What I was a little bit afraid of, and the reason why we went ahead and are standing for that money now is because when COVID first hit, it was impossible to get Chromebooks, and I was just anticipating that once the money is completely approved by E-rate, our grant has been submitted. I see no reason why we wouldn't, but I didn't want to get behind the line and a shortage of Chromebooks. So we got 500 coming, and we're holding on 500 until we see that for sure in our hands. So that's the reason
I
why.
was curious if E-rate came into play. I remember we
E-rate
discussed that
E-rate's going to cover the whole
before.
amount, and it's going to cover, so it's per device, teacher or student. So
Right,
we are using this opportunity to upgrade teacher machines as well.
That's a good idea.
Thank
And
you.
the very first Chromebook order that was, I guess, 1.5 years ago now, was funded through County CARES Act.
Right.
That was the $600,000 that we got through the county.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the state of the school, as I see it, student and adult well-being. We in Marshall are concerned about our students, concerned about our adults. This is a very, very trying time. I've had a couple people say to me, this year's harder than last year was. And in several ways, I understand what they mean. If you will take a look at this chart, and I think most of you have seen this, but this shows the last normal school year that our kids had was the year 2018 and 19. So if you'll look then at where the students are now, this was the last time they had a normal school year. So you can see that 3 of our levels have never been in school before, not in a normal school. If you jump up here to 8th graders, the last time they were in a normal school year was when they were in 5th grade. The last time our 12th graders were in a normal year was when they were freshmen. That's caused a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and just kids who aren't used to being in school. We've had some reactions and some ramifications from that. It's been difficult for our teachers and our staff to continue to stay energetic and stay positive. They have done a wonderful job, however, because they care about kids more than they even care about themselves often. But we are seeing a significant increase in inappropriate behaviors and the need for more discipline interventions than we have had before. So to make the school setting more conducive for kids and for adults, we have implemented a focus group, like I talked to you last time, to study best practices in classroom management and in school climate. We met last Thursday, and it was a tremendously great meeting. I have to say, I was so impressed with the great conversations, the great ideas. One of the first things we talked about is that we wanted our plan to be vision-driven, not deficit-driven. We don't want to come in with a bunch of war stories about how, well, I had this, you think that was bad, I had this. That's not, we want to work towards a tremendously wonderful environment for kids. That's our ideal that we're moving toward. Then we have to study how to get there and then talk about where our kids are now, rather than saying we're going to throw a Band-Aid on all of these little issues that we have. That won't help anything. That's a short-term fix, and we need to have a big vision in our head where we want to go with our discipline models, and we had some great, great conversations. So we are going to continue to meet. The next meeting, November 18th, I believe.
Maybe November 8th, I believe. I think it's November 8th. The reason that we waited a couple of weeks to go back, just to speak for a few of you all to clue you in on this, Ian and I are co-chairing this group with the student discipline concerns. We met with a variety of people across the district. There's a group of about a dozen different people from central office staff and other people across the district that are going there. The reason that we waited about 3 weeks for the next meeting is because we wanted to give the administrative teams to kind of have a chance to talk about this in their buildings, to find out exactly, dig down what's going on within their specific buildings and then their levels, and then to be able to bring that back. The administrative team had actually met that day. They weren't going to meet again for another 2 weeks, and then we wanted to make sure we gave time for them to kind of schedule this into their next professional development days so they would actually have time to concentrate and work on this effort. So it's kind of started. We kind of set out some homework and laid some lines down, and then we're going to probably build some steam with it as we come back. And of course, Christmas break is going to kill a little bit of that action too, but it's going to pick up some more speed at that point. So
Our team is going to go back to their buildings and research and study, look at different models and what we as a district need in our models and what we need to work for across the district, so we have a consistent effort across the district. A very disconcerting happening in our school, in our community, in the state, and the nation is the trend of vaping in schools. It has increased tremendously. We see an alarming trend in our middle school and our high school. So we have discussed this. We quickly jumped on this, and the middle school and high school administrative teams were great to give us their ideas and to work hard to come up with the devices we're talking about and the studying what types of testing, et cetera, should be done. The district is going to purchase some detection apparatus for the restrooms and the locker rooms so that when vaping does happen, we will be able to be alerted right away. We have cameras on the outside. It's illegal to put cameras in restrooms and locker rooms, but we have them on the outside in the hallway so that we can keep an eye on what and who is going in and out of the restrooms so that we can help those kids to try to avoid something really very, very dangerous in their life. We are going to then, for students who have been found with vaping or other drug paraphernalia, we are, after their suspension from school, and we are a non-out-of-school suspension district. Unless we have students who have violated the Safe School Act, we feel they need to be in school. So we do have a setting for them at Northwest where they get attention, counseling, help, so that they will be able to return to their buildings. But before they return, we are going to implement drug testing for those kids. They will have to have a test and show that it is clean. and that will have to be done within 3 days before they come back to school. So if we decide to go that effort, that will necessitate a change in the handbooks for the middle school and the high school, and that will be something that the board will need to vote on. So I would say that at the next meeting, we will be talking about drug testing for our kids. It is a very, very hot topic for many districts. These are for kids who have been in possession. Not a random drug test. It is nothing like that, but it is for kids who've been in possession, who we need to help to get counseling and so that they can get the help that they need so that they can grow into successful adults. I've talked about the strain that this has put on adults in our district, and they are working very, very hard, but it's overwhelming, and it's been difficult. So we have tried to implement several ways to help teachers and staff, to support them, to encourage them, and I would love to take credit for all this. I can take credit for very little, but my staff in the central office and the administrative team have done a great job of showing appreciation to teachers. If you know me, you know how I feel about Jeans Day. I would prefer for us never to have Jeans Day. However, teachers love Jeans Day. We have Jeans Day on Fridays for teachers who pay into a scholarship fund. So I have implemented Blue Mondays so that they may wear jeans on Mondays also. One of my central office administrators said, you would have thought you gave them a $25,000 raise because they're so happy they can wear jeans. I'm happy to do it. I don't like it, but I like making people happy. So I like making teachers happy. Anyway, here are some of the things that we have done. Wood in Houston was tremendously generous, giving us gift cards for every one of our employees this past week. We've had My Time days where we are sending professional development activities back to the building so it could be more of a recipe for what the building needs rather than district-led PD. That was very successful. It was very rigorous the first quarter, but now we are moving to building-led PD. We have the board approved covering each other's classes for teachers to be paid for subs. We put $1,000 on the teacher's salary base this past year, and we bought them T-shirts. So we are continuing to try to encourage and support our staff. And if you have ideas, I would be happy to hear them. Just give me a call or send me an email. We do try to support our adults every chance we get. We, like it seems everyone else, are having a tremendously hard time hiring individuals, keeping our bus driving, our custodian, et cetera, our teachers. We're having a hard time keeping up with those vacancies. Our bus drivers, for example, we are down 5, and I'm going to have Dr. Lorenz tell you more about this situation. But since the beginning of year, many of them have been driving double routes. So they take one bunch of kids home, they come back, and they take another bunch of kids home. So that they have worked much harder, but their compensation has been the same. We would like to compensate them for that extra work. We suggest they receive an extra prorated amount based on their current pay for the extra work that they're doing. And Dr. Lorenz has some information.
So I know it's on as an action a little bit later, but Craig and I have talked about this several times. We've talked about it a lot. We originally had 24 routes. We've had to compress that down to 19 routes. So we are having to cover 5 routes. We figured the average cost per route is about $1,131. So in the proposal that you'll be asking here in the action item after her report, Craig and I think an appropriate amount Because they are salaried, so they have a set amount, a salaried amount, and when they were covering one route, that was the amount. And so what we've had to do is we've had to overlap routes. Everybody's had to pick up more people. The buses are a lot fuller. Some of them have had to come back, but a lot of it is just picking up. All of them are picking up a route and a half. Some of them are picking up a route and 3/4 to cover that 5 routes short. So in that proposal here a little bit, in that action item, I'm going to be proposing that we increase each driver's monthly pay by $200. If you do the math on the $1,131 for the 5 routes, the average is $1,131 times 5 routes is $56.55. With 19 drivers, if we added $200, that amount would be $3,800. We'd still be $1,850 some dollars savings to the district per month. So, yeah, they're having to put in extra time, and they're still being paid the same amount as they were before, up until this time. So that's when we get to that action item a little bit later, that's the way that breaks down.
Thank you, Dr. T. We are, as I say, continuing to try to face this very serious challenge of filling the vacancies that we have. And I would like to recommend 2 areas later in the meeting that the board consider. I would like, last year you voted to give teachers the credit for past experience, and it was decided to do that for 1 year. I would like to suggest that we do that for next year also. That may be necessary for a while, but I think the board felt comfortable with doing that on a yearly basis. I'd like to extend the same consideration to the classified staff. We, at one time, had given the classified staff up to 10 years, but we had not given them the full amount of their past experience. So I would like to do that for them too. Our substitute training, DESE has once again decided to try to figure out a way to help the substitute teacher crisis. They are offering a 20-hour training. Rather than 60 college hours, you can train for 20 hours at a cost of $180. I would like to suggest that the district pay substitutes after they worked for 3 days, successfully for 3 days. Here in the district, I would like to suggest that we reimburse them that $180 for substitute teacher training. I believe that is all my report. Questions? We may hit some of those later.
I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to say, for the discipline concerns, I've been trying to wrap my mind around so much of what's going on, and I think you put it really well to have the 2 different columns there to show just how much of a gap in school experience there's been, and that goes a long way to explaining why students are kind of, what is homework at that rate? What does it mean for me to come home at the end of the day and have dedicated time to work on that's not how it's worked for 2 years. So what does it mean for me to also, on the flip side of that, be engaged in the classroom as a student? So yeah, there's going to be a lot of struggle, and so having put it this way, I don't know how much of that. So, kudos to all who are working on this, because that's the first time for me that really clicked. That it's not just those darn kids, or, why don't parents step in and help? I mean, everybody's going to have to step in.
I've talked to some teachers in this building, in Spainhauer particularly. These students have never been in a student setting their entire learning career. There's been a few of them that have kind of been in and out. We learned how to stand in lunch lines, they told me. We finally got everybody used to hanging up your coat and not touching your neighbor. And then all of a sudden you're out of school for 2 months. And then you started right back over. So they spend a lot of time working on these same base skills, these same base student skills of these students in these buildings that they're still working on those skills because we're just kind of into the second month of school again, which is kind of like a first month of school again for some of these kids. So it was kind of to hear some of these teachers that I've talked to, not necessarily in this group, but just overall, as they kind of explained that struggle, it really drove it home to me about how much we've lost. You know, it was just natural to me that the progression happened. You came back to school, you kind of started over. In my mind, it didn't click because I wasn't in the environment daily. So it really meant quite a bit listening to those teachers.
Something that really didn't occur to me, but is so true, is teaching now is not like it was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
It was difficult to compete with video games and YouTube and all of the things that kids have been used to doing for the past couple years now. Teachers have had to come back with a new way to teach.
Yeah.
They have taught at a distance. They've taught they've taught remotely. So not only are they trying to work with kids to get them used to coming back to school, they're having to change their strategies. So it's difficult. It is very difficult.
And instead of just focusing on blame, as you said, instead of focusing on who's at fault, the more important thing is how do we work toward what we're trying to achieve? How can all of us be part of that better system so that we can get the education to students and so that adults feel productive and engaged and happy and not so overwhelmed in delivering that.
And
That's
in
great.
the discipline focus group, we talked about how critical it's going to be for parents and families to be involved in this effort too.
Yeah.
So yes, it's going to take the village for us to get back to and to move forward from where we were.
I think it's just hard to, and I'll stop after this, but it's hard to overstate, I think, just how important it is to begin to have a concept around all of this. Because without a good understanding of what's happening, it's very difficult to navigate and get to someplace better. And so I was just saying to Brian, like, you know, for me as a university instructor and program administrator, you know, from my perspective, it was just like, what? The problems must be fixed, you know, help. But this really lays it out in a better framework. So
What they have lost is significant
Yeah.
and critical.
Dr. Mayor,
Yes.
have we checked in or looked into the possibility of having parents come to the school? I mean, if the kids are having disciplinary problems, I know if my dad was there, I would have probably walked the line, seriously. But I think we ought to try to get the parents involved, and, because, you know, we get too many times, oh, it's the school's fault. Well, maybe not. But if we can maybe have the parents come a day or two and just observe the kid and see what's happening. I don't think it's punishment, but, you know, if we want to be transparent and open to the community, they need to see what's really happening. Because they
Right,
may or may
it
not
is.
see that at home, but we're seeing that behavior here.
So one of the things that, if I may answer this, Chris, in this group that we kind of talked about, which we talked a lot about early and active communication. The fact that, you know, we've got to make connections with parents earlier. You know, we've got to make connections in good times. We've got to make connections at the beginning of the year, so that way when I call, you know who I am calling, and it's not a negative situation right off the bat because little Johnny's had a problem. But, you know, I'm your teacher, we've been engaged, you've met with me, and kind of looking at those extra times or those extra things as we go along. There's also, that may not solve that problem completely, or bringing the parents in, having kind of disciplinary discussions with the parents, which is something that they're doing in some of the areas, and kind of making that and pushing that out across the district as kind of maybe that's the way we want to do business. We haven't solved the problems, we just kind of started looking at some of the processes. But we also want to make sure at the end to let you all know, we want to bring in some other stakeholders in the community as well on this. We talked about that at the first meeting, but we've got to figure out what we've got going on inside before we start inviting other folks to go, so we can kind of lay that image out and kind of figure out where we're going, what we'd like to do, and then maybe get some of those stakeholders involved so that we keep the community engaged as well with us in the district, and we grow together on those two sides. So, and hopefully some of those parents will be a little bit more engaged as our process has changed a little bit more.
And it strikes me too, So when we first started converting to distanced learning, to distance education, I was deep in the literature about, so how do we create that village that becomes the environment in which online distance education can flourish in these remote sites, i.e. in the home. And it strikes me now, listening to this conversation, especially Ed's suggestion, Ed, I was thinking exactly the same thing. What I was thinking was, what I was reading in the literature about creating those stronger family connections, making online learning something more positive, making technology something that's seen as educational, not just entertaining, those sorts of things. We've kind of got that now, but flipped. It's not about the home learning. Now it's about being back into the institution. So how do we get students and parents back into the institution, just like we were trying to get them engaged in the online learning? So the pendulum has swung backward. And in some ways, as you've noted,
Brian?
it's now a both and, because we're using more technology in the classroom, and the students are expecting it, because that's how they've been learning for the past 2 years.
Yes, sir.
Did you discuss any of the Dads in Schools programs that are growing up quickly around here?
we
I've been
didn't.
reading about them, and it seems like if you get dads in the schools, all of a sudden the discipline is changed. At least from all the things that I'm reading about, it sounds pretty good.
We had about an hour and probably 25, almost hour, 30-minute session, so we didn't go necessarily into problem solving as much as we went kind of outlined thought process, vision process, and kind of where we were looking at different things. It's amazing how all of our handbooks don't even align, between the high school and the middle school for something that maybe is the same offense.
Yeah.
And kind of making sure that as students come from 8th grade into freshman, the world didn't necessarily change as far as the discipline cycle even went, because there's not a lot of difference between those two groups of students. So we haven't gotten the solution process, but like I said, and
There was no negatives, but everything I read about was positive, so it's something that interested me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mayor.
Additional program reports. In your packets, you had a report from CTA, Professional Development, our Social Services Director, and the Director of Teaching and Learning. There are a couple of those individuals here, so if you have any questions about the reports of which they sent you?
No questions?
None? None? The only question I had is for PD, and I will catch them later on because they're not a group that's here tonight. I just wanted to check about their budget, and you might actually know this answer. They said that there was a 0.5% left over from last year from PD. I'm assuming maybe because of being out or something like that, and so that they had that extra 0.5% left over for their budget. Is that a true statement, or am I reading that incorrectly?
Yeah.
Okay, so the 1% that we gave them across the board, so they actually had a 0.5%, I thought, before in the past, and it went up to 1, is that correct?
The legislature has deemed for last year and this year, and maybe next year, that if transportation funding falls below the 25%
Okay.
range there, that the PD ear tag for the district can be set at 0.5% rather than a whole percent.
Okay.
We have had a 1% from our state funding dedicated to PD since I've been here. Before that, last year, we had a 0.5% because we had several things that we had to do. But this year, we are back. I talked with Laura, who talked with the PDC committee, and we are now back to funding the full 1% for PD this year.
Okay. So it did read a little bit off, so it is just 1 total percent, not an additional or a leftover. It's just kind of what we withheld last year because it was a rough year.
Yeah, I remember.
And you
Okay.
can carry over
Okay.
from each year.
Right, right. I was just making
Yeah.
sure I understood that right.
Yes.
Anyone have any other questions about the reports? Well, Mr. Kobe, Ms. Durham, your reports were great reading through, so appreciate that. I know you've got something to go do, so thank you, ma'am. Enjoy being a parent for the evening.
By grace.
All right. Moving on to old business. One of the things that we've kind of been throwing around for the last month or two is that we want to revise and look at changing the policy on public comment. I was hoping to kind of brainstorm kind of collectively through email and get some information and kind of push that back out. It's kind of a long document. So I'm going to just open it up and let people chat about that a little bit. We may not actually get to a point where we may table this to actually come up with some terminology and language that we want to have in the document. But I know a few of us have kind of discussed some ideas, and if you all want to speak about that at this time or make a motion later on in that, I open the floor.
I worked on it a little bit and left it home. Dog ate my homework.
That's not a good excuse for a professor.
Well, and I've been swamped, so when this came in at, like, did we get it on Thursday or something?
I asked her to send it out at late midweek, I think is when it finally hit my mind that we
Yeah, yeah,
hadn't sent
yeah.
it out yet.
Right, yeah, and then I think it was it, did it go out on my birthday? I don't remember. But I don't even see it now. But regardless, yeah, I apologize for not getting comments back to you, Brian. I do wonder if we want to just revise this or if we, like, change some wording. Because there are some places, I think, here where wording is just straight up unclear.
Yeah.
Or if we want to have a new model for it.
Yeah, I had some notes down there. I couldn't understand why it was this way and why it was this way.
I was going to say, and just to kind of, I mean, I know we're all aware, a lot of our policies, just to let you all know, we adopt as they come to us from MSBA. We may tweak them slightly on the district level to kind of fit whatever we're working on, or kind of fit our district a little bit. They come out from MSBA, they're for Kansas City public schools, all the way down to Miami, you know, our Malta Bend schools. So there's a lot of differences in how we actually function as a true school when actually things get rolled out. The first couple pages of the policy are actually pretty standard, almost like legal correspondence as you read them. The last page of the policy are the things I think that actually probably mean the most to us of how actually people can come talk to us. As kind of feeling out most of the people that I've talked to on the board, or we talked a little bit before. I know Matt, Brad, Harry, we've all talked about this a little bit beforehand, is that we want to kind of change some of the terminology or the timelines. We want you to be able to come to the meeting and come and say, hey, I'd like to speak about something tonight. Not necessarily have to contact us ahead of time, not have to be put on the agenda, those kind of things. So we leave a public comment section there, and that we allow people to come in and comment on the things that they feel like. Aaron was over here underlining, and that's another thing, because we have it on there as a topic that is already on the agenda for the evening. Well, there's some things that are near and dear to your heart that we're not necessarily talking about or meeting about tonight. Maybe we met about them last month, and they struck a chord with you while you were sitting at home watching the feed or somewhere else, and we want you to be able to come in here and kind of give some feedback about those or to talk about those types of items. So also kind of the limitation of sides. Aaron and I may be on the same side of an issue, but because we are, only one of us will get to speak.
Yeah,
But
I know
Aaron's
that.
stance and view of it and my stance and view on it may be completely different, even though we're both for or against something. So those were kind of some things that.
That's one of
you
the
know, we had
areas I
talked about.
questioned.
Right.
Yep, be able to have
So
multiple
basically what it
speakers.
comes to is we'd like to open it up as a group even more to be more responsive and receptive.
I would-
So,
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, keep
go
going.
ahead. That's,
I was going to say, I'd like to table this as an action item, and bring it back up again next week, next meeting, and do some more work on it.
Well, it sounds like Brian's got kind of a model.
Yeah.
Like, all right, I support everything you are describing here.
Yeah.
And it reminds me very much of what happens at our city council too. I think it's important, the only thing I would, and Harry, if you are moving to table, I would second.
I was going to give Brian a chance, and then
chance,
I'm going
that's
to
fine.
make the
Then this is
move.
all just, yeah, then that
Yeah.
was just hypothetical.
you're fine. I try not to make
I
any
move we
motions
table
other than
till
this.
next meeting and have more discussion.
All right.
But something else to keep in mind here, I think, something I would like to see there is a bullet that says, that stipulates how we will interact with those who are commenting and how we will respond. Meaning, you can have your 5 minutes, or if we're super pressed, then I take it that this bullet point here means I could establish a 2-minute time limit because we've got 1,000 people who want to talk. But I think that that's confusing anyway, so let's just have it be 5 minutes or whatever. Okay, you can have your 5 minutes to talk. The board is going to sit there and stare at you. We will not say anything. conceivably, or we might. However we want to do that, right? But, so that's how we might interact. However, what kind of formal response can you expect from us afterward? I know there are some school districts that say, okay, hey, you've got these concerns. Well, you can expect a formal letter back to you in response, or not.
Yeah, we had the 5 days back and written and everything.
Right.
and written.
5 days for official
It's
written
just, you know,
response.
Right, yeah. But so that, now that's in the grievance policy, and that doesn't have to come to us as a public comment, right?
Yeah.
So how will we respond to a public comment? The board reserves the right to respond or not respond, for example.
I mentioned to Brian, I do want the board to be able to respond and ask questions, and then I want dialogue.
Now, there are some legal implications.
I know, and it could get crazy, and I know the whole thing is to keep board meetings from going insane, and I've seen some of them on the TV, but
Sure, but we are also human beings,
Yeah.
and we may want to have some interaction.
Yeah.
So that may be something where we want to let Brian know via email ahead of the next board meeting, where do we have a,
Do I need
all
to
of us
send
have a
that to
strong
you, Brian?
feeling,
We-
one way or the other?
Yeah.
If you'd like to, or if you'd just like to kind of send me a strikeout document, this is what I'd like to change or move or those kind of things, and then I'll compile what everybody says.
Try not to
Gentlemen
leave it
the
on
end,
my
do you have
desk.
anything you want to comment while we're here talking? Didn't mean to exclude you.
I just, the one thing that's kind of stuck out to me was like the finality of it. Like, once you talk, you
Yeah.
can't ever talk about that again, ever.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
crazy.
yeah, well, and,
And that.
Makes no
what if we
sense.
What if we don't respond? What if we just do like we stare at them for 5 minutes and then they walk away and then we never address it again? And then it's policy, they can't
They can't
ever
even bring
speak
it
of
up
that
again,
again.
right?
So,
Yeah.
Whether we
I mean, I
give them
just-
an answer or not.
Well,
So
I think
that's
it's
not
there, it's
correct.
there, those policies are there to protect our feelings, and I don't
Yeah.
think we should
no, who
really
cares?
have that,
Yeah,
so.
that's-
Thank you.
Yeah, we can't be here just to, be in
No.
our delicate little feelings.
I gave that up when I ran,
Amen.
you know?
You know what, and not to be too, like a religious scholar trying to find the hidden meanings here. However, I always took that to be a sort of, okay, you could see it that way, but, or does this mean an item be placed on the agenda? Is that my little line on the agenda that says Aaron Meyer to talk about X topic? Like, now, that's my
That's how it
item on
works
the
today,
agenda.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Kind
Well,
of. However,
now
some
we just put
people-
your name, but we don't necessarily say what you're going to speak about.
Okay.
But
If you
we-
contacted early enough for us to type.
Right, yeah, exactly. But or is it that the item has to already be on the agenda? It's a topic that's already here, in which case you have to be psychic and figure out what that topic is in order to go back in time and
Yeah.
request that you be able to talk about it. So there's that weird little infinite loop that makes no sense, and I think it's just a language problem. I think that the intention was never to try to keep people, giving MSBA the benefit of the doubt. The intent was not necessarily to keep people from talking about things. But let's do what we can to make this useful, right?
Right.
That's what Brian said.
And we also want to make it in clear language, like Aaron was also saying.
Yeah.
We don't want it to be ambiguous to where I read into it one way and you read into it another way, because
just
that goes back into
disenfranchises
too
the
much
public.
legalese.
Yeah.
We need to make it to where everybody understands it and it's plain and simple. We can't, like Aaron said, if we have 10 people on there and everybody gets 5 minutes, we'll be here for quite a while. So there may have to be some, thought process put into that if we have, I don't want to say your comments not important because you were the 7th person that came and asked tonight, but like Aaron said, maybe, we carve out 30 minutes, and if 10 people want to talk, then everybody only gets 3 minutes, but if you have 6 people that only want to talk, then maybe that 30 minutes goes back to the regular 5, so we may have to look at kind of some time constraints so that we're not here all night while we deal with the business and we're able to actually get some information, from the community and direct feedback in person from the community, so.
So we need to let you know, send you a markup,
I'm ready to call the question.
on the tabling?
Are you all right on the mood and second? Dr. Meyer, seconded that?
Type of response.
Okay. So, just for clarification, we do have a move and seconded by Dr. Meyer, but that we want to just send me your comments. It doesn't have to be professionally struck out and drawn through. If that's the way you like to mark things up and send them that way. That's fine. It makes it a lot clearer for the person revising them. I'll try to revise them, send them back out to you all. You'll look at them, send me back some more comments. But I'd like to come up with a semi-working document for us by the next time that we come back together. We can still come and, of course, discuss it, but I'd like our terminology to be kind of there. I don't want us to have to come up with wording on the fly, because that's not going to read very well for us. And as it being a policy, I'd like it for it to be, in clean language, as we're going to be pushing it back out and adopting it as something to keep in use. Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, okay, no.
And you know what, we should send it to you, like, let's try for 2 weeks so that you can compile it all and then get it sent back to us ahead of the next meeting, yeah?
Yes, I'd like to send it out, a good week or so before the next meeting. That way the next round of revisions can happen. And some of these people who are a little more literary scholars or English people on the board, I can get to tweak that stuff out, after us idea people that,
Can hold your
Matt and I
own.
are right on the back of napkin kind of people, but we'll have it all together. But, when you tweak it all in there and make it look fantastic, that's what we'd like to have as a finished project.
So can we aim to have that to you by November 9, Tuesday, November 9?
Sure, if that's early enough for you. Is that 2 weekends? Because I know that we all have jobs and lives too, so I'd like to give you a little bit of
Jobs,
time to look
lives,
over
right.
things too. So, like I said, just our next meeting in November is, I know, when is it?
We're gonna move it to the 22nd.
It's the 22nd, so if we can get something like the 9th, 10th of the month, I can get it back to you by the 15th of the month, and we can kind of move something going forward like that. All right, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of tabling and coming back to this in our next meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed or abstaining?
I'm so excited to change this public comment. Me too. This is one of the big reasons that I ran. I am so excited.
Well, in our fourth year, here it comes.
Yes, I know.
And I
Revision of the
I
safe,
apologize for not having my homework with me.
And I would like to make just a comment that the policies as written are MSBA policies.
yeah.
I mean, some people say, well, Dr. Mayer wrote it. No, she didn't. That's MSBA. It was never written by me.
and the board adopts all policies. So
Right.
the language or the terminology of the changes are things that are voted on by the board. There may be suggestions from various parties, but just to clear that up completely. So as far as the revision to the safe return to school plan, I believe, is this looking at the timelines, or what are we looking at here?
The timeline that was written in the plan was that we would review this November the 5th, because that's 30 days after we reviewed it before, and implement it then. November 5th is on a Friday, the implementation would be on a Monday.
Okay.
But if you all, I got a request to consider a 2-week trial to see if, and go mask optional. Like I said, that doesn't necessarily require a board vote, but I would like to know that we collaboratively came to a decision rather than just me making up a,
So, of course, the
Decision by
various
myself.
numbers of people in the community feel that we should be mask optional within the district, as we are. Our numbers have decreased significantly. I think that, honestly, in my personal opinion, I think the masking helps with that. I know it helps with our quarantining, because it changes the way that we can quarantine and allow people to stay within seat. My main goal is that we just stay in seat. Learning changes when we get out of these buildings, and that changes things for our students, our teachers, everything, and I want to be able to keep some of that consistency. But I also understand that we want to be able to kind of make our own choices in life. And so we've got to be able to kind of look at things and say, well, maybe we look at this and give this kind of a 2-week look, and if it doesn't work for us, then we change it. So I wanted to kind of just talk about that out loud while we were here tonight. Doesn't mean we need to make some change tonight to the changes for Monday necessarily. But, we've got some kind of natural breaks going on. We've got a Thanksgiving break that's going to naturally come for us toward the end of November. So if we run into trouble after we say 2 weeks, because if any of you all remember, the Spain-Howard School, we let out right at the beginning of the year. We were only here a week, I think, before we had to be out of school for 10 days.
Yeah.
So if we're going to have a situation like that, I'd like for us to look at it. We've got a natural break of a few days, so if we look at changing something the first part of November, then 20 days later, we've got a natural place that we could say, look, when we come back after break, if we're going to stay here through cold, flu, and questionable season, then we might have to do something a little bit different. So, thoughts from others?
I think that was quite eloquent.
The data seem to reflect that the plan's working, yeah? So I'd be in favor of just leaving it be, right? Be unchanged? Yeah. So,
So there has to be a motion or lack of motion, to where.
Just
or
some
no, We're
direction.
just gonna, huh?
yeah.
Just direction.
We made it as an action item, so we don't technically have to
Oh.
vote on it?
Yeah.
Because it is an
I'm
action
sorry,
item as it's
I'm sorry.
listed.
The, changing the plan was the original optional, where we would look at November 5th.
Yeah,
Implement on the 8th, and then what I could do, if you wanted me to, I could make an administrative procedure for a 2-week trial. But if we vote to amend the plan, we're amending it to November 5th and November 8th.
or we could vote to keep it status
Or
quo.
you can vote to keep it, whatever you want.
What are we voting to keep?
I was gonna say, that got somewhat convoluted, I think, so if you
Okay,
could
so,
repeat the
so the
options.
way it's written now is that
Yes.
every 30 days we
Right.
review.
Reevaluate.
So in 30 days from the last time we evaluated is November 5th.
Gotcha, right.
So if we then look at November 5th and see where we are, then we would make that change then
So
To
that's,
start on the 8th, the following Monday.
to start on the 8th the following Monday.
and that's a no change to the plan,
That,
right?
the last time when we evaluated, the superintendent looked at the data and we decided, and I called every one of you.
Right.
And we all decided that we wanted to keep the mask mandate.
I think
Then, yeah,
that's what,
then I move to maintain the safe return to school plan.
And then I'll
As
second.
it is.
and I'll second it.
Hey, we're on the same
Is there
page.
is there any more discussion about that or conversation?
We need to adopt the plan from DHSS. That would solve our teachers being quarantined and our pay issues with that. Because then there wouldn't be any quarantine unless they were actually sick.
That sounds like an administrative issue. Are you guys looking into that?
Well, that was a plan that is not CDC approved, so
Oh,
the
okay.
That's the
county
te-
health
that's the
department
test
can't approve
Yeah,
it, so
that's, yeah,
we would have to
Yeah.
agree to
we'd have to.
go
bump
around the health department.
Yikes.
The test to stay, is that what you're
Well,
talking about?
part of it is test to stay, yes, but the whole plan is, they can come back, the students and administrators, students, teachers, whatever, can come in masked, and they can't participate in extracurricular activities.
I believe they have to come back like with a KN mask or one of the approved masks, and like you
Yeah,
say, that you had to test, I want to say you almost had to test like every
You
other
had, well,
day or something.
that was to do extracurricular activities. It
Right.
was, you had to test 3 times in 7 days.
Right.
Negative, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But that plan then eliminates our 15 kids who are quarantined at home for probably no reason.
And actually, I think it's more for schools that have mask optional.
Hmm.
Because in our plan, if both people are wearing a masks, then
No
you don't
one
have to
leaves.
quarantine.
No one leaves.
Unless you're showing symptoms,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Then
think
why do we
we're
have
quick into
15
where we
kids
are.
out?
because they have at-home contacts.
Probably health department
Yeah.
quarantine.
Yeah.
I just went through that.
Question?
All right, there's a motion on the floor to leave the plan as is that has been properly moved and seconded. We've had some other discussion, so we will leave that up to vote now to leave the plan as is, which will be a reevaluation by the 5th, and then a new determination given at that point to take an effect on the 8th.
And once
As an
again, I will call
administrative-
all board members.
Okay. All those in favor of supporting the plan as it currently sits, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any, yes, sir? All right. And anyone abstaining? Matt? Matt was a no.
That's the easiest one we've ever had.
Approval of MHS budget packet and amendments.
MPS. Did you say MHS?
I thought I said MPS, but the mask may have drowned me out. Maybe I did not.
Try me.
The approval of the budget packet for the Marshall School District and any amendments. That was also in your packet multiple times, and also a slide was about that within the superintendent's report as well. Does anyone have any questions about that? Maybe calling for questions before we have motions.
Say, I'll move to approve.
It's a lot of money.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
It's good to see our, like you said earlier with some of the monthly stuff, it's good to see our fund balances, you know, in good shape.
Even though we're in a kind of state of chaos, our finances are still holding strong.
Yeah.
So,
Knock on wood.
yes.
Oh,
Is there any more questions about any of those there?
Is your reserve percentage for next year shows 20, that's just a.
That's my
that's an
estimate.
assumption. Okay.
projection.
Mhm.
I think that was the only-
And I do think, and I made the statement that 3 years from now, when the government funding runs out, it'll be really interesting to see where our fund balance is at that time.
Well,
All right. So I have a move and seconded, I believe. All those in favor of approval of the budget as it was sent to you, please say aye.
aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? New business, because we finally got out of old business, all right. Just information's sake, November's board meeting will be on November the 22nd. I should have just turned the page earlier, and I would have had that information right there in front of me. So the next thing, we'll move down to compensation for the bus drivers, increased responsibilities. And this is an action item, kind of as outlaid by Dr. Lorenz earlier. I do have one question that we start. Are we going to retro this?
No, when Craig and I talked, originally we were talking about $150, and we went back and forth, and I think at 200, we would start from today and move forward
So that kind of pays them back a little bit
for a
more
few
than.
months, yes. That was the reasoning for the 200 versus 150 or 175, was we wouldn't go back retro, we'd start from your approval.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept that.
I'll second.
Is there any more discussion?
Call the
Is
question.
this for this indefinite? This indefinite
We,
increase?
we talked about that, Craig even asked about that. I think that you could cross that bridge at that time. At this price point, if we did pick up a couple of drivers and they were paid, you would have to pick up a full slate of 5 or 6 new drivers before you cross back over where we're at right now. So if we got back to full strength, which I don't see happening, we were having trouble before COVID and it just accelerated the problem. So it was discussed, but I think that we just make that decision at that time if we do get back to full slate. So I would leave it in play until we got back up close to 23, 24 drivers, and then you could talk about it. But I don't see that happen for a couple of years.
So in terms of clarity, then,
So-
I know there's been a motion and a second that is currently on the floor. Would we want to look at doing this for the school year and then reevaluate and vote next year as this comes back up again and make this one school year effective, as we've done kind of with the substitute pay or the other things, and then kind of we re-rolled it back in? So just putting that out there as part of a question.
I mean, I
Agree.
I think as long as we put a point with Linda or somebody in the calendar that I would want to make sure to give those drivers the benefit before we approach the start of the school year, give them plenty of time if we decided to pull back from that. So that would be sometime early to midsummer. I would think we would need to make that decision if we're going to move forward. So just a point of reference.
So who had the motion? Is it Harry?
Yeah.
Or
Ed had the original motion.
So would Ed be willing to
Amend the motion.
Amend your motion to go through the year?
reconsider,
Annually.
for a reconsideration in June?
I think so,
Ahead of the
annually.
fiscal year.
Annually in June.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make that.
Then I'll make a motion second.
And I believe that we also probably need to think of the fact that the summer school year that we will probably be having this year may require this extra pay, so that we maybe make it effective for this entire school year,
Yep.
which includes the summer, and then we look back at it moving forward into the fall sessions.
Agree.
Does that work for everyone?
Yeah,
Ed, as far as your motion?
Yeah, we got.
And the second, I believe, came from this side.
And
Yeah,
I made
thought
the
that was
second.
Harry.
Was that Harry? Both on
And I
this
already
side?
agreed
Okay.
to the
And you agree as well?
amendment, yeah.
All right, all those in favor of the $200 added increase for the drivers who have been doubling duty for us, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Thank you for all the routes, it's one thing to say we're going to give you something, it's another thing that you've already done parts of this for us, and our kids didn't have to suffer, delayed starts or, sick outs or arguing about how we were going to get it done. We did the job, and we recognize you for that, so thank you.
Yeah, we need to, somebody pass that on to them, please.
I will, thank you.
So, information on legal and auditing requests for service. We already kind of talked about those. That's not an action item, so this is just something to keep moving on for.
Just wanted to see if there were any requests or suggestions about the process.
One of the things I noticed on the bottom of them, of course, we talked about the term was on the bottom, and that it was for a 1 year with an option to extend to up to 3 years, I believe. Is that how that was? Or was it two
First year
more
and then
additional
two more,
years for
so
three
a
total?
total of 3.
A total of 3, yes. So, does anybody have any problem with that terminology or that language?
Is the understanding there that then that's the end of that relationship, and then we do necessarily move on to another firm?
That we
I
would
think
put
should
it
be.
back out for, at that time, we would go in for another request at the end of that period, and then we would start over, whether it's with the same firm and we were satisfied, or whether it was someone else, correct?
You can decide to just extend your relationship with that firm, or you can decide to stop the relationship
Do you-
and
do you think
and
that,
open bidding again.
Do you think that firms would have a problem with saying, I'm going to accept this one rate for 1 to 2 to 3 years, because most everybody else wants to increase their margins every year? So without having anything in there with, we're going to give you a 3% raise or anything like that, just something to think about, because people always want to do that. So, I mean, as people bid on it, we'll look at that. They may try to hit us a little higher on the front end to make sure that compensation is built in if we extend it.
It's been my personal experience, you just have to watch the rate on an RFQ or an RFP like this. So it's rate per hour, and I have known companies who make up the difference in a lower rate by adding hours. So just keep that in mind as you're deciding what you're going to do.
Okay.
Brad, weren't you talking about, you had some, so you were talking about, I think at your place of work, when you guys bid out certain kinds of services, you make it so that necessarily you have to change the service, and then like, it kind of comes back, like.
That's correct.
Yeah,
As
and-
far as for, how to put it, exams are done by the state or the Fed, but it's an audit, and I call them self-inflicted, because we pay somebody to come in and do it for us. So that self-inflicted audit, we contract with that person or with that company for 3 years, and then we send out for RFP again after that, and the person who did it, who just come off their 3-year contract, is not allowed to, we don't send them an RFP for the next session,
Yeah.
for the next 3 years. So
And
we
why
always
is
rotate.
that?
So you get a different set of eyes on it, always.
Yep. Yeah.
So you don't have the same people constantly just looking at the same thing. You don't get the same reports back year after year, just
Yeah.
the date changed. It ensures some of that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
And I think that's important and valuable. So that, I don't know if that needs to be in an RFQ or RFP, but
I was going to say, you wouldn't put that in saying, I'm going to disqualify you in 3 years. That would just kind of be a board decision at that point in time when we went back out looking at it.
if they know that up front, then they know it up front. I think all of the people that we contract with, I believe they're told that up front, that they won't, we're going to use you, and then we're going to change after this contract's up. And we'll send you an RFP in 3 years after that
sure,
contract. So
yeah,
if you did a good job.
right, yeah. I think that's a good way to do it.
Moving on to the BMS chiller. Dr. Lorenz?
So we sent out bid packets to all of our vendors who've done our HVACs in the past. We got a bid from IFS that I am recommending this evening. I had Dr. Mayor budgeted about $400,000 for for this project. The bid from IFS came in at $356,890. That includes the demo and removing of the old chiller and all the piping necessary, concrete pour to put a new pad. It includes 3 new 45-ton scroll compressor type chillers. It includes all, of course, the piping and the refrigeration piping, and then integrating that system into the program for the entire campus. I am pleased with the work that IFS did with the boilers. I'm excited that we have an opportunity to, in 6 years, we've never really had the chiller working right at Beaker, so I'm excited for them and for myself to move forward on this project to stop a lot of the problems have been initiated from that building, and this should put the closure on the back end of the whole HVAC system over there.
This
And this is, go ahead.
came in about almost $50,000 less than what you were
Correct.
afraid of. How'd that-
Correct.
And this can be reimbursed somewhat out of ESSER money too, I believe, correct?
Correct,
Because this is environmental.
correct.
Right.
Yeah, nice.
So is that our intention to do that way, to get that money out of ESSER? Is that, I mean,
Yeah.
is that built in what we can get?
Yeah.
So,
I hate spending that much money, but.
so I need a motion to accept that bid to do the work on the chiller, with the idea that we will be paying for that. Of course, all ESSER money funds have to be paid for up front and then ask for reimbursement, but that still falls within the cap of money that we still have available for us. And we have had some environmental problems at Beaker over the last few years, so.
Okay, I got a dumb girl question, because sometimes things are opposite. What is the chiller exactly, so people know
So
what
the
we're...
chiller is the cooling side. In bigger buildings, bigger systems, there's a boiler or heating side, and then there's a chiller or cooling side. The option that I spoke with Matt before we went down this scrolled. So what we have out here and what the old system was over at Beaker was a lost my train of thought.
Air conditioner.
The difference,
It's
Air conditioner.
it's a different type system.
okay,
These are, what we're looking at is a scroll compressor system. Actually, it's going to be housed indoor, and we will be piping out into that. We'll be putting the condensers out in that fenced-in area, but the primary system will be down in that, well, Linda calls it her dry room. It's down there right by the electrical units. So the old system was 2 90-ton compressors, and we never had more than one side of it working. And so when they did the study on it, they came to the conclusion that basically 345s would cover us. What it allows us to do, which we cannot do right now, and we could not do this with the boilers either, when we have a problem, we have to bring the whole system down, whether that's heat or cool. And with this system, and now with the boilers as well, we are going to be like basically in a chain. And if one goes down, we can bring one offline, work on it, keep the rest of the system going. The 90-ton actually is probably enough to cover it, or just close to enough, and the extra one allows us some flexibility so that we don't ever go down again. So I knock on wood, we don't ever go down. So
Hey,
yes,
that was good to let the people know, because he said chiller.
as soon as I thought it was probably something for cooling, it would be for heating, and then I would have been totally
No.
opposite of what
No,
we
it's
did, so that's why I'm
the
asking.
chiller's the big building cool
I
side.
mean, it makes sense, but
Yes.
as soon as I thought one way, it would be opposite.
So what's the timeline? If we approve it
Well,
today, when will it be up and running?
with, that's a difficult answer with supply chain problems. He asked me a couple days ago. I told him I'd let him know in the morning what you guys decided, so that we can get it ordered. I hope that we can get it and get it in by next summer. That's how bad the supply chain is right now. That's my hope, that we get it in by next summer.
Did we have a motion yet?
We do not have a motion, sir.
Do you want to make one?
I'll make it. Let's spending money.
Harry makes it.
I'll make the motion.
So Harry moved on the chiller. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Or abstaining? Okay. Now we're moving down to the approval of adding the position of HR secretary. Those duties were kind of outlined and the discussion was held earlier in the superintendent's report. As Dr. Maris said, the auditors kind of said we needed a kind of double set. When we first went over it, we said that we thought initially we would need to look into this position to kind of fill some of the gaps, which they said were in our HR department and in processes, so I will leave it there for additional discussion.
The only comment or conversation that I'd like to have with this is, I appreciate that when an auditor comes into your place of business and does an audit, that you respond and reply with answers that seem appealing at the time. My only question about this at this point in this juncture is, we can still be appealing to what they need us to do and just make sure that we've identified that all roles and all people at central office, nobody can assume anything else. And I just want to make sure that the few duties that we really have listed on this, I understand that the bulk of this work will happen really honestly before school starts. And so is there enough to keep someone truly busy all year long in that role, whereas we could split those duties up and not spend that money in central office? I feel like we do have a lot of money in central office. Is there not any, I'm not questioning what they're doing, I'm just making sure that we are wisely spending and not just adding another spot that won't be busy all of the months of the year. I mean, I just can't see that we're hiring a bunch of people, doing a bunch of HR stuff once school starts.
I think
And maybe I'm wrong.
No,
but
I've
I
already
just feel like
expressed the
if
same sentiments
If
before.
we were able to email the auditor and say, we've spent $67,000, $100,000 for you to come to tell us we need this person, but we've identified other ways to manage this system that is more cost-effective and more beneficial to our district and leaves us money for teachers and other things, maybe that's how we do it, and maybe we just need to identify that a little bit longer. I do understand, and I do agree that we wrote that in that reply, but I also feel like all of us sat at that table and we're a bit pressured to write that. I mean, I have a different approach.
I don't remember that we wrote it specifically that we would. It was something that we would be considered. I'd have to go back and look at the wording.
And again, I don't know that our words in that statement, we will, we won't,
Yeah.
I don't know there's anything binding there, and certainly I don't feel that way because the auditor and her team certainly wasn't, what they said and what they did were certainly two different things also. So I'm not sure I just would like to see us really identify that that's truly a need that we feel like makes us better. That's it.
I think there's a couple of twofold things. I've looked at kind of like the descriptions. I haven't done a time study, to say whether a full-time position is needed here or there. I know that with the paperwork, there's some other things I think that our system needs to play into. One of the things that we talked about was just an electronic timekeeping system overall.
Yeah.
I think if there was an electronic timekeeping system, then it may be able to knock out some of maybe this redundancy that you're talking about here. But that is not a system that we have here in place. And that is something that we're going to have to look into and bid out, and something that also is not going to be able to start. We also have some duties that this is looking at of kind of cross-training people in the department, because right now we have a very thin kind of office line on receivables, payables, those kind of things, and looking at having a little bit of redundancy. I mean, heaven forbid anything happened to Linda, but if she went out for 2 months, I don't know who would do that job, so, and looking to the future as, the people in those positions are probably looking at nearing retirement. Do we need to have some cross-training or some thought things that go in there? Those are the things that I'm looking at as naturally, positions may leave out of attrition, but do we need something here in place now to make this system a little bit more solid? And that's kind of what I'm looking at it as. I think that you probably wouldn't need an extra person if you didn't have paper timesheets. if you didn't have some of the things in place that you had in place. If you didn't have MSBA saying you have to code everything by 15 different line items, that takes people forever to be able to put in the group. But I understand exactly where you're saying that, we have to be responsible stewards of the money. And we have money that goes out here, there, we have needs all over. Do we put these pennies in this bucket and in this pool? And in my opinion, I think we do have to support this position. But as I said, that's an opinion.
Cost is not free.
Right.
Every time we add a non-teaching position, that takes money out of the teacher fund. And
I agree.
But we seem to always find ways to put a little bit money back in the teacher fund, huh? Matt and I had shot an email to Dr. Mayer earlier, and kind of they had some conversation yesterday and looking at even starting discussions about salaries, salary schedules and things like for the upcoming year of ways that we can maybe move into, possibly some other salary spots or other salary moves. But like I said, there's limited money and there's maximum needs in all parts of the district.
I guess, again, my only statement would be, I don't understand honestly what the rush is, instead of us truly showing and proving that there is a true need. My only thought would, I
don't think
think
it's a
about
need, but a
Dawn and Linda
precaution.
in that meeting, and they do a great job. And so they were taken back that night when they're like, well, you need another set of eyes. And I'll never forget, Linda was like, what? Another? Like, we do this. So I just wonder if we, that's all I'm saying. I'm not,
are we going to follow through and put 4 or 5 people on the gates as they recommended?
No.
And pay them? Are we going to, I mean, about all they did was, we spent a lot of money on that thing, and all the solutions were, we spend more money. And I'm, all right,
That was one of my main concerns, though, was filling those positions when they do come open, the retirement. I know Dawn's gonna write checks for another 100 years, but maybe not, so, I mean, who's gonna do payroll when she's gone? Who's
I
gonna,
don't think there's anything wrong with cross-training.
yeah, I mean, that was what come to my mind when we talked about hiring that position.
Business continuity.
And I've talked about, I wanted to see someone in a true HR position in central office for a while. I think we need it. I think somebody needs to overlook some of the things that go out. Maybe not HR, maybe more proofread, things like that, but yes. I mean,
Is that really what this person's gonna do?
that was before the audit that I thought that. So, I mean, I support having someone in there for that position, just me personally.
Aaron, I know this is something you've talked about. I'm interested in your thoughts about it.
With me?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that you've talked to me about for several years, different, and I'm just curious what you think.
What Matt said.
Okay.
Yeah, and having, especially the extra set of eyes.
Yes.
That, just another layer of accountability. And our fund balance is looking healthy. So, now might be a good time to do exactly what Brian is talking about. Put this person in place. If this person becomes irrelevant or redundant in X years, then we reevaluate and we change that.
that never happens.
Well, maybe that philosophy is something that we haven't wrapped ourselves around completely. Contracts sometimes are reissued without thought of need.
Yeah.
And maybe that thought of need needs to make its way back into it instead of saying we reemploy across the board and looking at our process as they go year to year. I think even in culmination with this, as you're saying, spending money in this position, I'm looking at, we've got to get an electronic system. It makes no sense to me that a place with almost 500 employees does not have a time clock.
Yeah.
I was just somewhat slightly appalled.
And as
all
Ellen
the things
said-
that I've looked into within the district and thought about, it never occurred to me we were making paper timesheets still. And when you're talking about paper timesheets for that many people and that many locations to get to one place or one person to enter in, you're talking about a lot of hands that have had to touch those. I've dealt with getting 150 timesheets in and how there's always 10 people struggling.
And we only
you know,
had 2
so-
mistakes
Well,
in the
and
audit.
So something else that I was thinking about too, the auditor said, hey, there needs to be some more division of duties and also building into that system, some continuity, right? So in case we do have people leave for any extended period of time, other people can step into those roles while we still keep a division of duties there. That's part of it. And there was another thought that just went right out of my head.
Aaron, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I mean, that's exactly the line of my path right now is, say it.
Okay. And we're not getting a C level, right? We're not getting at some districts, the head HR is an exec level. What's the term I'm looking for?
Yeah, C-level
Like a head of
employee.
HR
Yeah,
director.
you're right.
Yeah, like part of central office, but as a director, right? So what we're talking about is a secretary.
Won't be long, it will
A
be.
considerable difference. Like,
Right.
and I know Columbia is a different animal. It's a porpoise of a different squeak. However, they have something like, and I can't remember this woman's title, but she's their HR something.
Yeah,
And she's essentially an assistant superintendent.
yes, that's right.
Thank goodness that was, but my point is that that's not at all the recommendation. What we're looking for is somebody who is an HR professional, but at a secretary level, right? So it's not as if we committed to taking on somebody who is going to fundamentally restructure the C level of central office. This is something that can, as Brian's saying, be restructured later. Okay, so that's it.
Okay,
Close.
and so my thought process along with that is this. I just wish that we could see, prior to adding these two things, a time system, and this position is going to cost us more than the entire audit on an annual basis. It is. The time system is going to be 50,000+ a year. It's easy. And then this position is going to be 50,000+ a year. So these two things are going to cost us more annually
With insurance,
than the
et
audit
cetera.
did. What'd you say?
Oh, she will.
I'm just
Okay.
saying.
So,
yeah.
my only thought process is before we jump in, one, what is the hurry? And two, why can't we have all of the positions that they said you need to identify and line out in central office? Why can't we see that before we add a position? Why can't we see what everybody's doing and make sure that we're comfortable with the alignment prior to adding in? I feel like a few of those things that were on that list already, somebody else is already doing. So if we take those from her, then what will she be doing? I don't know. I think we're rushing this a bit.
I agree.
That's my thought process. I don't know that we wrote on that paper that we will do this in October of 2021. Over time, as we find a need and are capable, maybe so. I think that if we're going to spend $100,000, then it needs to be on carpet in the high school. It doesn't need to be in somebody that's going to sit in a chair at central office right now. That's just my opinion. That's only one example. There's $100,000 we could spend in 100,000 different places in this place that we have very competent and capable people doing right now, that if we could line them up, I think we would find that we can fill these very small duties with our very competent people we already have. Just my thought.
Anyone else?
Dr. Mayor, when you put together the position description, you put that together, I'm assuming from needs you identified in it and the central office team, in
Correct.
addition to some recommendations from the auditor's office, yeah? But
Correct.
primarily
Correct.
from,
And to be honest, the reason that I think, and maybe we don't need this person right now, but the reason I think we do need one eventually is we do have to cross-train someone because Dawn will be retiring. And that's just a fact. We need someone to work with Dawn for a while because she does a lot.
yeah.
So that's what I see is this hire. But
So you do identify it as an area of need?
I do, I do, because it worries me that we have one person that knows how to do payroll. If Dawn were to break her leg and end up in the hospital on payday, there would be hysteria. But
Then I'll move that we approve adding the HR secretary position.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
That's Matt. Matt, that was you, correct? Is there additional discussion at this point? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Maybe I'm going to do that by roll call, and I'll start over here. Matt?
Aye.
Brad?
Abstain.
Aaron?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
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 That is a 3-3, so with one abstention, so therefore there's no action. Moving along, awarding of previous years of service for new certified and classified personnel.
And I want to make sure that I was clear, because I don't think I really was, but this is for newly hired individuals. This is a way we can recruit for people to come into our district.
I think
It's not retroactive on all 350 of our employees.
I think that's something we need to do, and I'll move that we accept that.
So everyone that's, hold on, if people are already here and they didn't get to bring their service in, will new people will they be hired at a different rate and higher rate potentially than people that we already have here?
I guess that's potentially a possibility.
How do we we'll lose a whole bunch. I mean, if we're gonna hire people in with years of service, and we don't pay people according to their years of service that are already currently employed here.
No, we do.
Well, we did that one year.
No, we don't.
We did it last year for teachers.
For non-classified staff, we don't.
Wait a
Oh.
second. Didn't we do this with teachers, that we agreed to do
Yes.
this with
We
teachers?
did
but
it
the
with-
teachers that were already here?
For our recruiting for teachers, new hires, yes, last year we did that.
Right. Because last year, we actually did
But
this
but
very
not,
similar thing in a
but we
different
did not do
classification.
that for classified.
Okay,
Right.
I withdraw my motion because I'm confused.
Yeah. Help me I want to make sure I understand too, because
Okay. So last year, we approved that new hires coming in could bring in all their years of experience for teachers.
right.
Those were the new teachers, not people who are already here. Then the classified staff last year, we made you all voted to give them 10 years of experience. Or was that the year before,
Well,
Linda?
I don't think I was a part of that.
It might have been the year before.
Was I part of that?
They-
Okay. Okay.
Okay, 2 years ago, then 10 years.
Whenever it
Well,
was.
So-
Linda thinks it was last year. It matters not when it was. It was a similar
So
situation.
next year then, the newly hired classified staff, like the newly hired teachers, would be given their entire past experience. So is it,
Yeah, and that would be. In classified, it would have to, like teaching, it would have to be qualified in the area that they were
right,
being employed for. So if they were, it would have to be verifiable, whether it was maintenance, custodial, groundskeeping, whatever it might be, it has to be something that's verifiable to get their years of service that they can verify.
Okay, so that was my, okay. I think it's clear as mud.
Well,
I've confused myself. I just wanted to make sure that people that weren't already here, that have 10 years of service somewhere else in maintenance, then these people come in and get their years, and those people did not get theirs prior to this, does that make sense?
yes?
yes,
But they are getting, is what you're telling me?
So-
Everyone across the board will have their years of service?
no,
No.
new hires,
No.
like we did for teachers last
So
year.
my point exactly, so if somebody's been our employee for 5 years and they have 15 years previous, they didn't get to count those 15 years, but if you're an employee, a new employee here, you get to bring those 15 years with you.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm quitting and I'll ask you to rehire me. I want to bring my time with me.
We did allow classified people to bring 10 years. We did.
Yeah, the 10 years, yes.
Okay, so did we or didn't we? I'm getting two different answers.
We allowed 10 years. I believe now we're talking about lifetime. Is that what we're saying?
We used to allow classified and teachers 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
We then opened up the teachers to bring in, the new teachers to bring in all of their experience, but we did not do that for the classified.
Right.
Right. But if they're here already
That's correct.
And that
and they did not bring their years with them, then, so what? But new people that we're trying to recruit to fill vacancies get to bring their years, and these people that have been here and been committed to us, we're not giving them anything. They're quitting, and now you're filling their position. Because you're not giving, why would
We're
you
just trying
want to hire?
we're just trying to balance
This
what
is-
you approved last year for teachers. That's the way you approved it last year for teachers. We're trying to balance that with classified that we did not do that for last year.
I mean,
And I understand where you're going, Ellen.
People across the
Like,
country
it's
are
a
seeing
line-
this.
It's a line in the sand. And it's a line in the sand that a
Important line.
lot of places are doing. I understand that. And the job market is so bad, for lack of a better term, and hiring is so bad, that incentives are being given to recruit for other employees. Is it necessarily a fairness? No.
But what are we
And
doing
you
to
have to
keep the people
draw a
we have is
line
my
in the
question.
sand to do things. Every year, we give bumps usually. Every year, every position, classified and regular salary positions, our
What's the
teacher
difference?
positions go.
What's the difference in somebody that's been here, that's working?
There's no difference. Well, you're right. There's a line in the sand. If you had 15 years and I only took 10, and now I'm hiring people with 15 years and giving them 5 more years, yes, that
What
is
does
the
that-
situation.
And I would be happy to look up and see how much it would cost if we raised everyone. I mean, I can get those numbers.
I don't want us to get in a situation, I've been here, where we're pushing to get these positions filled, and then a bunch of people jump ship, and now we're really,
Yeah.
we're doing this again. And
Yeah.
so, I mean,
And you leave for a year and you come back and you keep your 16 years instead of the 10 that you're already at. And
Right.
you get moved out on the
that's
salary
why I said
scale
I
next
quit, and
year.
I'll ask you to hire me back. If I do
325
it right,
years.
I'm gonna come back at your door.
I hadn't thought about that.
So,
Sorry.
there just needs to be made a motion.
No, I'm glad you did. Huh? Brian, what'd you
And
say?
if there,
I
I
want
said
them to
there's
get
either a
this.
motion or there's a lack of support. Either way.
What happens if we table this to get more information about what the other will
The
cost?
same thing.
I have
You
at least,
table it and you bring
I
it
have
back.
at least 1 or 2 hires that are waiting on this decision right now.
Okay.
So-
I mean,
And that's the
we
reason why I
probably
brought
have
it up.
15 that are gonna walk out the door if we do this too, so, I mean,
That's assumption, but we're
maybe.
all there.
We could have.
So we can, if there is no support for it, then it sits and you can bring it back up at a later date if we so choose.
But if we gave the teachers that, it's no more fair to do the same for the,
Didn't
to the
we
classified,
had this
so.
discussion.
We had this very similar discussion
Yeah.
before because of basically the same type of thing. Whether we felt it was a fairness thing in order to draw the line and move forward, or whether we go back. It was the same torn discussion before whenever we had it, because we felt like we were doing a disservice to the people who have been loyal to us in the past. And we also were looking at recruitment and how we were gonna fill the vacancies and positions and keep functionality going here on this side. So,
urgency of recruitment
So,
that won out.
so do we
Right.
allow certified and classified staff to bring any time with them now?
10 years.
We allow classified to bring 10. Certified can bring whatever their entire work history.
So, if, for new hires,
How do we
would it
do
affect
this?
those 3 if we cap that at 10?
Matt, say that again?
I asked if the hires he was speaking of, if it would affect them, if we capped a new hire, you can bring 10 years with you. Because that keeps it the same as,
That's what it is now.
what they could bring with them now, or what exists now.
Do we,
But not for classified, right?
Yes. Classified is 10 years. Could bring 10 years.
Then what are we
with
adding? Awarding previous years of service?
You're just adding lifetime service. If I'm 50 years old and I've been doing this for 20 years.
So we're just not
Then I only
capping it.
get 10. Right, you're just not
them.
capping.
For new.
For new. Yeah.
how do we do this and remain loyal to those people that have been with us for 10, 15 years?
You would have to go back and retro it. I mean, you'd have to go back and allow them
Retro
to
would
be
be a
moved back up
nightmare,
on the scale.
but-
But we did not do that with the teachers.
Right.
And so therefore, then you'd be giving a bump and moving those staff ahead of what you actually agreed to do with the teachers. And that affects, the teachers would affect a lot more people at a lot more higher rates that would move a lot farther out on the salary scale. Because there's a handful of teachers probably that only came in 3 years ago, maybe 10 years experience, that maybe had 20. So those people would be able to come back up at a higher rate or move 10 spaces
I
out.
recall that when we were talking about it last time, one of the comments that I can't remember who made it, somebody said was, it's not that we don't want, it might have even been somebody from central office, it's not that we don't want to show current teachers appreciation. It is just that money is an issue when you're talking about that many people at that kind of retro pay. And so the urgency is for recruitment and getting people in the door where we have none. And this is the incentive for that, not to be a thumb in the eye of those whom we currently employ, but to be, this is a tool for bringing in those to fill empty spots, because that is it's a real urgency.
That,
Children are not being taught.
Well, I think one of the points the
These aren't
Well, I'm
CTA,
talking about for the teachers.
I think one of the points the CTA brought was if we don't hire these teachers, people are going to increase their class size by 5 to 7 kids. So,
I mean, that's another way to look at
Dr. T, will this give you a better recruiting tool for bringing people in? Is
Yeah,
this one of
most
the reasons you're pushing it?
Oh,
Most
of
definitely.
course, because it's giving you more pay if you have more experience. So that makes it more advantageous, you know, at that point.
I
mean,
just
how-
hate to see people jumped over our existing people. I just hate to see that. It doesn't look good to me
It doesn't feel good.
for some reason.
Well, but another way to look at it is if we can't hire new people, those
Yeah.
existing people may get tired of doing the work of
Two
three people,
or
and they
three
may jump
people,
ship
yeah.
to go somewhere that will.
But it sounds like we're talking about what we can do on the salary schedule for the existing employees anyway, right? I heard you say that a little bit ago, Brian.
Well, that's one of the things that we
One
talked
of the
about
things
looking
we
at the
discussed.
future for like
Sure.
next year. But yes, yeah. How many of our pennies are we able to put within something else that is, you know, when we add to the salary schedule, it's a lifetime commitment.
Right.
It's not something that we can ever back down. We can
Right.
only go up from here, literally.
Yeah.
You know, when we talked last year or beginning of this year about, hey, we're gonna look at insurance, we're gonna cover it all this year, but man, next year if those premiums change, we might have to look at capping that and being able to stop somewhere, you know? And so, you know, CTA came back and said, I'd rather have all my insurance. You know, we'll worry about next year, you know, kind of deal. So, but of course, these aren't teachers, these are other positions that we're talking about here at this particular time, but it rolls out to the same thing for everybody. Everybody's looking for, you know, the most advantageous spot. And whether we can hire at a better rate than someone else, better benefits, it's just a competitive hiring advantage is what it comes down to. So-
How many positions do we have open across the district right now that we're trying to fill?
Are we talking about that would be in this classification or
Yes, sir.
teaching and
The
everything?
certified
Yes.
and
Okay,
classified
so
personnel.
these would be mostly your positions, Dr. T?
Of classified?
Yes, sir.
Custodians?
Let's see.
5 bus drivers.
Yeah.
That's not very many to make it.
Seven, I would think.
I know of a custodian, I know of a groundskeeper, probably 3 or 4, I don't know, I don't have.
Okay, and then how many classified people do we have approximately that are working that did not get to bring those years of service with them, do you think?
That would be all of them.
All of them?
Yeah, 'cause
Some,
So we're
They could've
worried,
brought up
we're
to
worried
10, but not
about
all.
this for 4 people
Oh, I see,
potentially
yeah.
versus the
I'm wor-
100 we have?
So I
we
have.
don't have 100.
A lot of people, it doesn't get talked about much. We talk about teacher shortage, but I'm at the edge of the rope. We've got people doubling up. I'm wearing jeans to help out.
But those 4 positions will
we-
fill you up?
I am trying to find ways to recruit in classified like we are in certified. And this is just one thing that we can easily do to help me out there in the job market, which is extremely, extremely limited. And I can't get things filled the way they are. And I don't know where else, I don't have any more rabbits to pull out of the hat to be able to cross people over and do 2 jobs. I'm running out of places to go, and we have to address, like we have to address with our teachers and our administrators, we have to address and help me find some ways to keep and retain and recruit. And I don't know what else to say other than they're not standing at the door whenever I open up any of these positions. So whatever I can do to be competitive as I can, it's tough. I'm having a tough time across the board in all areas of classified. And
One of the
I-
things that Linda just reminded me of too is that when we actually did this with the teachers, we did it for 1 year, but it's different for us in seeing our minds because it's a critical teacher shortage and we knew we weren't gonna have enough bodies in the classroom. And this was another recruitment and attraction for us to bring people in. I think it's harder for us to look at it in positions that we don't see it as a direct impact on students, but it is a direct impact on students on buildings and other supports that they do have. But when you're looking at it as far as teacher numbers, I think it's a lot easier for you to say, well, if we increase 4 people in the classroom, if we don't do anything to bring people in, then it's a different way that we look at it. It's a
Is that
different way
why
that we
we-
feel about it. I
Is
believe.
that why we mixed certified and classified and put them both together rather than do them separately? Because this
Actually-
calls for certified and classified. So we've got now certified teachers coming in with 40 years of experience if we hire them.
But we've already done that, correct?
We did that for this year.
For 1
And-
year.
So
For
is this
1
a
year.
renew, so is this a renewal
And
then?
we were
I didn't pay-
This
suggesting
makes it
we do
permanent
that for
if we
the
vote on
teachers
it.
for another year.
But this
Okay.
doesn't say for another year. This doesn't say for,
This has no time limit on it.
Right.
Well, and when I presented this before, it was for 2 years. You all felt comfortable with 1 year. So, I mean, there may not be a time limit on there. I think you all can set the time limit, or if you don't want to, just,
Yeah, we
Like
can do
we
that
did
right now.
on, like we did with the bus drivers, and we said we'd do it for a year, and we'd relook at it next year. So,
Yeah.
so the expiration on the certified staff, is that this year then? That would be, so new hires next year, we would go back to our previous hiring practice, is that correct? At this particular juncture?
this would be for the rest of this year?
I think if I was doing it, I would, if you were, put a window on that bus driver, I would put them all in the same spot. Make the decision annually. If you want to look at it, continue looking at it annually.
That's
I would
what
put them
I
in-
could support that.
In cycle, I would do them all at the same time. If you want to increase, if you want to expand that bus driver window, if you want to expand the certified and the classified years of service, you could do all that. But I would do it the same way early or in the summer so that everybody has a chance to know where they're
Yeah.
standing.
Would it,
because the majority of our hiring.
would it be unheard of or unfair or silly to add in that existing employees, that we could look at their situation on an individual basis?
We cannot look at things on an individual basis, that is opening us for chaos. I mean, just legally from an HR standpoint, that breeds favoritism and all kind of other things, we would never win that.
Well,
I'm just saying
we
from
don't
my
really have
HR
an HR
experience.
person.
Yeah. I'm not, we ain't getting one either, no. But anyway, but from an HR perspective, we couldn't do that, that's why we're so locked into salary schedules, years, those kind of classifications with those hires. Yeah. So, as I said before, there can be a motion or there can be no movement. Hearing silence, I'm taking that as no movement. If you choose to stop me before I move on to the next one, I'm giving you about 10 more
I'll move to
seconds.
table this,
Second.
Pending what?
pending maybe us receiving some numbers, to show what kinds of, to make everyone equal, so we're certain that we're not bringing someone in at a higher rate than an employee that's already here that did not get to bring their years with them. Does that make sense, Aaron? You walked out when I was talking about that.
No, I'm thinking about it in terms of, because we were just talking about how getting into individual levels of things would be chaos, and that sounds like we're starting to get into individual levels.
Well,
of
we
things.
didn't allow people to bring that, and so my concern is if you bring these new people in at getting that, then the people that have been committed to us working for us, they're gonna bolt, and then they're gonna come
And
back.
I agree with Ryan, I think that's an assumption, because some of the folks, I mean, and you can do that all you
I mean,
want.
I don't have to
my-
agree,
my
I'm just
point
saying,
is,
like,
the people I've talked to about this feel both ways about it,
fair
right?
enough.
So, I mean, it's not like we haven't done it before, and we didn't see a mass exodus, right? So,
I mean,
to
Did we
the
get-
extent that it gives central office an opportunity to hire people where people are needed, I think it's a worthwhile endeavor and not something that begrudges existing employees anything, but that instead incentivizes those who might otherwise have a reason to go someplace else.
Now, all right.
So
Did
there's
we have
been
the motion?
discussion. Is there any more discussion? Because there has been a motion to table and a second. Yes, sir, Harry, I'm circling up right on back.
Brian, does that include certificated people? Does
What are we talking about here?
the,
Are you talking about the additional numbers or the
the teacher,
active?
last year we did one year that they could bring in all of their experience? The teachers.
Yes.
So are you looking at teachers and classified
Will you-
both in
will
this
you be
Are
motion?
you
hiring
talking
teachers
about
before
bringing
next
in,
month?
are you talking about bringing in the numbers? Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about the tabling?
I'm talking about the tabling.
Because they were
We can-
married before, I'm gonna keep them married on the table.
Okay.
Because the
That's fine.
motion,
But you-
the action item was together,
Okay.
so I'm gonna keep them together on the action
I'd
item
just like
unless.
some more info. Like,
So.
what does that really look like?
So there has been a motion to table. All those in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye, why not?
Opposed to tabling? Aye. Anyone else? Abstaining?
God forbid, there's no reason.
Did you get that count together?
You are
All right. Moving on to item G, approval of payment of substitute teaching training after 3 days. I am going to open this up with a bidding of sure. We sure should give some give back for those that are coming to free our shortage that we definitely have with substitute teaching. That will be $180 to each person that gives us 3 days of service after they have gone through the 20 hours of training and to reimbursement for that program.
Mr. President, did you enter that as a motion?
I did enter
I
it
will
as a
second
motion
it.
with the introduction.
I will second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. I need a motion for us to adjourn.
So moved.
Closed section? Harry? Oh, I need to read this. I guess we will be moving to closed session for legal actions involving the district and attorney communications, hiring, terminating, disciplining, or promoting, and personal records, evaluations, and applications. So,
So moved.
in the second, Harry?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Ellen? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll be moving to closed session in the conference room.